All right, how's it going, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Forward Thinking Founders, where we talk to founders about their companies, their visions for the future, and how the two collide. Today, I'm very excited to be talking to Will Schmitt, who's the co-founder of Rightfoot. Welcome to the show. How's it going?
It's going great. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, excited to have you on. I'm looking forward to learning more about what you're working on. For people that haven't heard of Rightfoot, what is it? What are you working on?
Yeah, so Rightfoot's an API company in the fintech space. The idea is that we want to be a little bit lower layer in the stack to really enable the repayment of student debt. Student debt's a really big issue in the US. I think we're all really familiar with that. Some folks are maybe a little bit less familiar with sort of the inequities that are in student debt. 2/3 of all student debt is held by women, despite half of all graduates being women today. Black students, after 12 years, have 116% of their original balance compared to their white peers at 60% on median, not even on average. So our goal is to really kind of provide these APIs to enable new products to be able to find creative ways to funnel more money into repaying student debt, which we're so familiar with how large of a problem it is.
So this is really interesting. Obviously, a massive problem. Tons of people trying to work on it. We need 1,000 trillion more people working on it, right? A massive
Sure.
problem. But for you, walk me through a little bit about like what are some of these things you can do with the APIs, or walk me through like if I'm a developer, I'm a company, and I want to
Sure.
use your data, your API. Like, what can I do on top of it?
Yeah. So the goal for an API like us is to be pretty unopinionated. So the idea is really it comes down to you want to make a payment to a student loan. I'm not sure exactly why you're doing it. You may have a product that's going to be processing micro payments and smaller payments over the course of time, sort of like your retail rewards app. Someone might make a couple bucks off of some transactions that they've just used with their credit card. So let's funnel that in and get that kind of instant gratification. Other use cases might be your employer benefits product, which is a monthly payment of something in the hundreds of dollars rather than perhaps in the dollar range. But other more interesting use cases like tipping, we see in rideshare companies who would not want to be experts of student debt and figuring out really the semantics of performing payments in that space. Within rideshare, when we've done some initial studies, we see that there's a 30% increase in tipping if you know that that tip's going to go to someone's student debt, just that social connection. And that's like actually a really interesting space there. And a company like that would never want to actually dive into the details.
So walk me through, I guess, two things. One, why did you decide to start this? And then two, why did you decide to start it like how you did? Like, why API product? Why something that
Mhm.
people can build on top of? How'd you get into that kind of decision?
Totally. Education is definitely a passion for the three of us. I have two co-founders, Danny and Deirdre, and the three of us have always kind of been driven by this. And I think we were even further inflamed when we saw the gaps of equity and inequity, as we you talk about social inequity, but quite literally financial inequity as well, on this liability side of folks' balance sheets. And so the idea is like, hey, education is one of these really important lifting factors for folks. And if it's going to be disproportionately more expensive for folks, we wanted to really tackle that. Now, there are plenty of different interesting products you can build on top of that. Employer benefits, these tipping products, or maybe you're just your financial wellness apps that are trying to figure out, hey, maybe you should be spending more money here or saving up here. Why are you investing? You get a 7% guaranteed return on the student loan if you pay into it. The idea was, we could have been one of those. And we were thinking about being one of those types of companies, particularly like employer benefits. But there's a lot of folks that are doing that and are going to be really good at creating that. But one of the obstacles for us was figuring out how to do the payment part of it efficiently and effectively. We want to be able to target subloans, for example, within a single account at a student loan servicer. You may have several different loans of different interest rates or different balances, and the strategy of paying down the highest interest rate loan versus or the lowest balance loan in order to reduce minimum payments is something that we wanted to be able to provide to folks. So being able to kind of get those possibilities were a lot harder without spending a little bit more time there. So our goal is, hey, why don't, instead of this being an obstacle for other folks, let's make this so it's such a seamless, easy process that any app developer at home that's coming up with some creative idea, we can kind of really diversify the possible solutions and power all of them. Folks that might have been competitors for us are really now customers. We can help them deliver a better product, and ultimately we can provide more people with products and find which solution is really going to be the one to have the most impact.
As you've been working on Rightfoot, what have been some things that you've learned either about company building or just about the industry that you didn't
Mhm.
know kind of previously that you kind of you find valuable?
Sure. Um, Let's see. That's a good question. Things that I didn't know before, I would say they're the things that you learn the most about are the things you suspected that you need to learn more about, and it's essentially the parts of uncertainty that you're trying to discover. I think the spirit of a startup is thriving in uncertainty and trying to reduce that uncertainty as much as possible with the least amount of effort to do that. That's, I guess, the spirit of an MVP. So really the focus on, hypothesizing for us happens at every sort of iteration on every scale. So anywhere from your technical decisions at the bottom, engineering a product and what's your API, what's the name of a field in an API is sort of a hypothesis on its own, all the way up to the fundamental decisions of, are we going to be providing student debt and is the value for being able to facilitate payments, all throughout the entire stack of what the product is and what we're trying to solve and tackle. Is that hypotheses happen at every single layer, and so pretty much every day we're kind of addressing an assumption and trying to decide that assumption is correct or break it, and decide what the next step is after breaking that assumption.
And I'm curious, like for you, is like the not necessarily big vision. We'll get to that in a second, but like in the short term, are you kind of trying to get just like as many companies to build on top of the API as possible? Do you want to build like spin up your own products on top of the API? What's kind of like I guess how would you like the API to best be used like
Sure.
in the ecosystem, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I mean, as an engineer, like our goal here is to try to be. I want to try to play with something as soon as possible. So, if I were to consume an API, I want to kind of dive in and just play with it and see if it's going to work, experiment, and we want to give our customers that ability. So, we'll be launching a self-service portal to be able to kind of get off the ground without having to talk to a single person right away. We believe that's really important. We've kept our API docs public right from the start. We want to be really transparent and reduce as many obstacles to get new folks trying, because there's a lot of really great ideas out there uh, that if we can suddenly reduce the friction and not really increase the cost by involving us in the loop, then suddenly all these really interesting ideas can come out. So we definitely have a lot of interest in trying to see where there's spaces there. There's a lot of existing customers that are looking to reduce costs on performing these payments and increasing the efficiencies of them as well. So we'll target them as well. But I think there's a lot of creative solutions in this outside of the existing employer benefits space that will be really interesting. And there's ideas like we can try to imagine ways folks will use the API, but the goal really is to be surprised by how people will use the API and try to be simple and generic enough that we're the ones delighted when we see like, whoa, that's a really interesting space, and some weird outputs come from that, but are ultimately kind of driving the solution.
And then if you were to kind of like zoom out, big picture, big vision, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, whatever you may think,
Yeah.
what is the big vision here for the company and what direction are you rowing in as you kind of built into the future?
Sure, totally. So I like to say we're fintech infrastructure, so we're kind of now a little bit lower in the stack. We're not at the application level where end users are going to interact with us, but we're not so low that we're not providing ACH rails or real-time payment rails or wire or bank accounts and such. We're like a layer above that in the stack, essentially to say, hey, like a student loan account is unreachable, but also there are lots of other accounts that are unreachable. A lot of other parts of folks' balance sheet on that liability side, their credit card debt, which also has a lot of the same issues as in student debt and doesn't have any collateral to really back it, unlike a home or auto loan. But the idea is like these are non-routable accounts, but they really can have money moved possibly into them and possibly out of them. We'd like to see, especially with the advent of a lot more data APIs, and you see like the Plaids of the world where you can link all of your accounts into one place. You're still kind of stuck only being able to move money between the bank accounts because they have ACH rails, and the only way to pull money into your investment accounts is to go to your investor and your broker and say transfer money in here. Same with your student loans and such. So the idea is, can we build on top of those other lower layers to be sort of the routing part of it, maybe like your L3 if you're want to use the network model, but like be kind of that L3 on top of the L2 ACH and other low level banking protocols. Be up there and say like, okay, this is how we handle payments that are going to here. No, you can't pull money from that. Credit cards can't be used to pay student loans or such like that. Kind of enforce those rules, but be able to create all the semantics and make them available to other people to just treat all accounts maybe being routable.
And in order to make that happen and bring the vision to life, you'll need some help, right? It takes a village to make a startup work.
Sure.
My question for
Yeah.
you, how can the forward thinking founders community help? Are you hiring? Are you looking for customers? Are you raising capital? How can we assist?
Yeah, absolutely. We just raised a round with Bain leading our seed stage round. So we are looking for bright and talented heads. Plenty of folks that are going to be creative and tell me how I'm thinking about this wrong, and how we can reimagine what the product will be to drive growth and really impact the end users, which is the real goal here. So there's plenty of open positions that we'd love to have folks join.
And if someone's kind of interested in learning more about, checking out your website and potentially
Yeah.
working with you, how can they find you? What's your website? Do you have a social media? Do you have an email? How can someone get in touch?
Yeah, totally. So you can find us at rightfoot.com. And if you're a developer, head on straight over to docs.rightfoot.com and get those API docs, start consuming them. Tell me what you'd like to have done differently and make life a little bit better. But we'll get you started, and you can email us at info@rightfoot.com at any point if you're interested in a role, or if you're interested in consuming this for your own product. And we'll get you set up, get you some sandbox keys so you can start testing, and move you into a production environment to test some real money moving around.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. Really appreciate it as well.